Right, hello, September the 12th, 2021, so it's getting towards the middle of the month, so I like to try and do a garden tour once a month. So it's going to be another rough and ready look at some plants. So we'll probably just go through and have a look at food plans for next year as well as we go. I'm going to try and keep it under the 30-minute mark just due to storage space on my phone. Right, so these are the reduced dailies I brought last week. I don't expect them to do much. They'd already sort of done a lot of flowering, so there's a few flowers left on them. Quite pretty. But yeah, they're the sort of dwarf dahlias, so you get 18 inches, so they're gonna, I've got a spot for them next year. Large raised trough, all doing quite well. This thatch has done really well. I planted it 2 years ago from about 2-leaf tiny little plants, so that's done pretty good. The serviceberry thinks it's full-blown autumn already. It's started to change its leaves, nice red, and that's when you know autumn's on the way, when you start getting the sicklemen start coming up. You've got the flowers coming there. Right, so full disclosure, we've got my work area here. Not really the nicest thing to come straight into the garden to, but I will tidy that up eventually. I've still been doing some potting up and some propagating, so that's why that is as it is at the moment. All the Trapecarpus seedlings doing well. Put on a lot of new growth this year. And we've got the Brugmansia, which I left out all winter in a pot, and I thought it was dead, and well, you can see the main stem totally died off, but it's got some branches come off. Not looking particularly special, but it is flowering, so it's worth having a look at. Just a single white. Right, so let's have a look at the Monstera is doing well. It's still outside, it's just opened a new leaf. So they're still enjoying the summer holiday it's got. That might be out for another couple of weeks. Tree ferns in the raised plant is also doing fine. This is looking really good, the Livingstona chinensis. Really nice looking fan palm. Then we've got the Kentia palm. Also doing well. Just opened up a new frond, slightly more lighter so you can see. Right, so we'll have a quick look at this area, which is arid bed behind with lots of colourful flowers in front, mainly dahlias. So the idea is the dahlias I just showed you down the side, which are the dwarf ones. I'm going to lift all these big ones and put the dwarf ones in here so they don't spoil the view of the arid bed, so you can enjoy that a bit more and let that get full sun, rather than a lot of stuff at the front of the arid bed is sort of shaded out now due to the tall dahlias here. So that's the plan there. And also I'm going to move this, not sure what it is, some sort of succulent, but it's just spread so much. It's quite pretty in midsummer. It's got bright red flowers on it, but it's absolutely took over the centre there, and you can't see any of the cacti. But yeah, all the yuccas have done well. So obviously this is early morning, so they're in the shade at the moment, but they do get late morning and sun all afternoon and evening there. Brahera martyrs still looking good. Nice and blue. The agave's doing well, send out lots of pops around them. Aeoniums, the green and the black, done okay. Got Yucca purpurea there, which has sent out loads of pops this year. So another plan is to move this large Tropicana black, because it is far too big and again shading out the arid bed. So I will dig that up at the end of the year once it's finished flowering, and pop that up and then find a place for that next year. I'll leave the one here, which is a little raised area here, so we've got a grass one side. I'll leave the canna in the middle and I'll get another grass the other side. I did have some umbrella grass there which sort of passed its best, so I cut that back. So at the back of the seating area we've got obviously the bamboo in a raised trough, and then behind that in the ground we've got the Urando Danex, which surprisingly has done quite well this year for how dry it's been, and pretty cool. Not saying that, so far September's been it's been our summer. Sun's out today and it's absolutely scorching. But yeah, that's well over 2.5 meters. Nice variegated leaves. Right, so the Sago Palms have not flushed this year, so you're looking at all last year's foliage. There's obviously a bit brown tippy around the edges. So I'm sure that'll put on a good flush next year. Gunner is starting to wilt. Again, we've had no rain. We had a little drop yesterday which done nothing. That is literally just a 5-minute, wasn't even a shower, that's just a little spit of rain. So the gunner has really struggled the last month. It's been so dry, and you can see the leaves are starting to brown up. Not concerned, that'll start dying off soon anyway. So the wildlife pond is doing its thing. It is quite wild around there, but full of frogs and newts, so I don't like to disturb it too much. Round the edges of some of the early annuals are sort of gone over, so I've just stuck some pots around there to fill the gaps in. Again, a lot of the hostas and stuff have passed their best now. The best looking one still is the Summon Substance. Good sized leaves on that, but that's obviously got a bit of slug damage. Goes without saying, really. The Brunner always looks good. Nice, I think that's Silver Heart, I think that's called. Really silvery, actually. It does really, in the shade, it really does stand out. And it's started flowering again. They normally sort of flower early summer or late spring, but that's going again. Got another Brunner in there. It's quite a small plant, that's variegated form, but again in a really shady spot that does stand out quite nicely. So the Voodoo Lily, which was 1 last year, and now it's about 6. So they do divide rather well. Obviously some of these are quite small. They didn't. The big one flowered and sent up this big leaf here, and then shortly after all the little ones started coming up. So I'm guessing I'm going to get quite a few flowers next year off them. But they only last a couple of days. But the main thing is the stem on them are just so unusual looking, and the leaf is really unusual sort of leaf form, quite sort of palmate. But again, that's really just one leaf divided off, and it just unusual, quite like that. So what we're looking at here, Begonia. I think that's Begonia Grandis. That's a big one. That's quite hardy. That is actually in a pot, and I'll overwinter that in the greenhouse and plant that out next year. It's too late to start planting stuff now, really. But it's started to flower. I mean, the flowers aren't anything special, but I think it's mainly for the big leaves and the underside of the colour on them. So the Indivisor definitely survived our poor winter. I wouldn't say it's put on a huge amount of growth, but it's definitely opened up a good 3 or 4 fronds this year. So they can be quite finicky. So I'm pleased about that. Got this Fatsia here, which is a variegated form, but very little variegation on it, so I'm hoping next year that might flush out to something a bit more impressive. And while we're talking about Fatsias, we've got the spider's web here, which last year all the leaves were really nice, and then this year they've pretty much come out plain green with just a little bit of white outline, so we'll see what that does next year, see if that flushes out anything more interesting. So again, any gaps in the borders, I've just been sticking any reduced plants in, like again these begonias I bought the other day, and the hibiscus, so I just stuck them in just to fill the gaps really, and fill it out a bit. So yeah, it's all doing quite well. This is one Fatsia that has surprised me. I thought it was going to be quite slow growing, but when I put it in, it was smaller than the standard green one I've got here. And being variegated, I thought that's going to be, you know, considerably slower, but no, that's overtook the plain green, and it's got some really nice leaves on it as well, so I'm quite chuffed about that. I think I only paid about 12 quid for it, so that is a good buy, that one. The little T-Rex doing quite well. Nothing absolutely monstrous. The leaves are decent size, but it's just this was a tiny little plant last year, so that has really filled out quite nicely. So this is a canna I'll be moving next year. That's the bird of paradise canna. They got a lot bigger than I thought they would, so yeah, I'll be moving that one next year to let more light in for the Cordyline Superstar. And I've got a little Camadoria radicalis there, hardy parlour palm. A little Waggy and a standard Fortunae. Still waiting for the fruits to ripen. If we keep getting this weather, we might get some fruit off, I don't know. So that's a tomato tree anyway. Right, so not much to note other than the fuchsias have been flowering non-stop all summer. They're looking really good. This is done really well. If you looked at any earlier garden videos, you see this just had a few leaves on it at the beginning of the year. I kept this in the cool in the greenhouse over winter, and that's done quite well. That's the split leaf tree philodendron. So I did have a bit of a trim up yesterday of the red bananas, so I can that's give me a more open path to get to the summer house now. And some of the lower leaves were looking a bit wilty anyway, they're a bit old. And I got carried away and I started trimming off some of the Tetrapanax leaves as well, just to open up to see so I could see my cactus patch a bit better. And in fairness, this put out some massive leaves at the beginning of the year, which was so low hanging that this shaded the whole cactus bed out, so I had to cut them all off. So this is the biggest last remaining leaf, which is considerably smaller than the ones I cut off, but that is the way it goes. Incidentally, I've got a eucalyptus gunnii there, which planted a couple of years ago, and in the first 2 seasons that got stupid high. That's about 20 foot, and that started scaring me, so I coppiced it and chopped it about 2 meters, and it has branched out a bit, so hopefully that'll come out a bit more bushy now rather than go straight up. Right, done plenty of videos on the palms and that around this corner, so I won't go into them. Colocasia still pushing out new leaves, looking good. Washingtonia filibusters have put on a bit of decent growth since I uppotted them. They're all pushing out new leaves. They'll be nice, good sized plants for next year, so I'll probably find a place for a couple of them and flog the rest. So let's have a look at the centre beds. So I think I went a bit too mad with this this island bed here with the Parajabao in the middle, sort of getting swamped out by all the problem is that it's a big round bed and just had the palm tree in the middle and it looked a bit bare. So I put some dwarf cannas in, and still looked a bit bare, so I put some dwarf dailies in, and before you know it I started adding loads of stuff and it just got too much. So a lot of that will be coming out next year. Again, these cannas are going to be moved next year, they're far too big. That is just one small plant when I put it in. I literally had a couple of growth points, 2 or 3 growth points, and that has gone absolutely mental this year and far too big for where I want it. It does block the view of the palm behind. So another plan for next year is to remove these smaller cannas out, the Tropicana Gold and Tropicana, which incidentally I always find these are really late flowering. That's only just started to send up some flowers. And again with the Tropicanas even late, I mean you can see there's a leaf there, small leaf, which means it's going to flower soon, so very, very late flowering. So another cycad or Sago Palm, which I thought was going to flush, but probably not now. So these are again all last year's growth. One of my favourite coleus this year, I just bought a rainbow mix, and really like the leaves on this one. Shame about the damage, but really interesting splodges on that. Quite nice, so I might see if I can collect some seed off that one. Yeah, so again this clump of cannas in the middle of sort of taken away from the rest of the plants in here. I mean you can't even see the dahlias here. I'll probably leave these Cleopatra either side and get a smaller, might even put a Tropicana Gold where this one is, just so there's sort of smaller cannas, and that'll break up all the green with the yellow stripy leaves. So just to recap, I know I've had a few subscribers since I've done any last garden tours, and also not everyone watches all the videos, and some people just drop in and out and watch what they want. So a lot of stuff I do repeat, but a lot of stuff people probably ain't heard. So this is Paulownia, or foxglove tree. Beginning of the year, the growth habit was just wanted to sprawl straight out sideways, so I cut that right off, and I didn't see that, so I cut that off there, and I just had one straight up stem. and that's the way to go really. Every year if you want the big leaves, you just need to cut it back to about a foot or two and just keep one strong growing point, and that's where you'll get the biggest leaves. But that's probably past its best now. I mean, the leaves are good size, but they're yeah, I think they're getting towards the end of the season for that. Right, so I've got some giant bird of paradise in a pot here. Ain't really done much this year. It's opened up one new leaf, but again, not surprising with the disappointing summer we've had. Not a disappointment. I did have a big pineapple lily here, which never flowered. The leaves got quite big, so I thought I'm waiting for a nice flower off that, but no, never materialised. Right, so what we got at the back here, we've got a phormium, which is pretty much smothered out now by the red hot pokers. Got another fatsia here, not ideally positioned in full sun, hence why I've put the big green anseti here just to shelter a bit from the sun, and that is also the plan with the Canna Stuttgart. And this one was at one point throwing out some good sized leaves. As you can see, the problem is the white just shrills up, it just gets burnt so easy in the sun. So they look really pretty when they first open, but they just didn't take the sun. And we ain't had that much sun either this year, but they just crisp up. So that's a real hard one, because I've got another one in the border the other side, and without the heat of the sun they don't tend to grow so well, and you get tiny skinny leaves. Right, so we've got this thing here. I couldn't tell you what it is. I brought a load of seeds at the beginning of the year, and it looked quite pretty when it was small. It had a really interesting purple tips to the leaves, almost glittery, and the stem is quite interesting, sort of stripy stem, but just look a bit weedy, so I won't be growing that again next year. Incidentally, I did get round to planting one of my Begonia Grandis yesterday. Well, I've done both of them. I've done one in the front garden, one here, because I pulled out I had an artichoke there which had started going over, and I don't eat artichoke anyway, I just grew it for foliage, and it never really was that impressive, so I pulled that out and stuck that in instead, so I can get its roots in while the ground's still warm before winter hits. So we've got a king palm there, well, it's 3 in a pot. I guess it's done okay. It's pushed out a few fronds this year, but it's actually only 2 years old, grown from seed. I grew that a couple of winters back from seed. So I've got, interestingly, some Washingtonia. I've got a cluster of 2 there, quite small. Another cluster of 2 here, which I'm not surprised they're small, because they sort of don't get that much sun due to everything else. But the third cluster of 2, this one has really took off this year, really started pushing. So the last winter frond was this one, was obviously showing the damage on it. So since then we've got 4 or 3 opened and a 4th now coming. So for the summer we've had, that is not too bad a going. So that obviously I'm not going into every plant, I'm just doing the bits of interest. There's another waggy down there. We've got a nice waggy here, which is I've got 4 waggies. I bought them all at the same time. I was lucky enough to get them online a few years, about 5 each. And this is the biggest, or the biggest frond so far anyway. Really quite nice looking palms. I quite like them. Right, so I think that is about it. So yeah, overall not bad considering the summer we've had, but there have been some disappointments. Mainly sort of some of the more unusual collocations, and specifically the Thai giant, which pretty much gave up growing, same as the Jack's giant here. At one point I had a leaf probably twice the size of that, and that's just down to one leaf. It is starting to push a new leaf there. But yeah, a lot of stuff has been a bit disappointing, but you know, there's wins and losses, so all in all it doesn't look too bad. Like I say, it's not a show garden. It's, for me, I like as many different varieties of plant as possible, and I buy them and then I have to place them, so that's the challenge. And like I say, some things work, some things don't work. It may not be to your taste, but that's the, you know, it's my garden at the end of the day. I do what I want. Anyway, I think we'll leave it at that. Any questions, any plants that I've looked at and not talked about, just drop us a message and I'm happy to do a video on anything you want. Obviously come up to the winter protection videos. There's going to be a few of them coming up, and I'll probably do some specific plants. I know a lot of them have been done to death with the certain things, but I do things a little bit differently, maybe to some, so you can always check them out as and when I do them. Right, I'm just mumbling now, so let's leave it there, and thanks for watching.